Welcome everyone to the Unboxing Careers podcast, where we shed light on what different careers are really like so that you can choose a career you'll really love. I'm your host, Greg Zakowicz, and today we are diving into the career in real estate. But before we do, let's talk briefly about unboxing thoughtful gifts. At thoughtfulcollection.com, you can shop from a wide selection of curated products you can feel good about, helping you express friendship, gratitude, and love. The next time you need to, don't just gift, give thoughtfully at thoughtfulcollection.com. All right, I'd like to welcome to the show Lauren Herskovic, real estate broker at Moda Group in Chicago. So Lauren, welcome to the podcast and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is going to be fun. So my wife will love this because she loves looking at houses and doing all that fun stuff. So let's start with this. Let's just do some some baseline setting for the audience here. So tell us briefly about who Moda Group is, kind of what their operation is, and then we'll kind of get into your career a little bit and how you work with them.
For sure. So I am on a team called Moda Group. We are, I think, about 5 or 6 agents right now, and we work out of Compass, which is a large national real estate company. In order to be in real estate, you have to be with an actual brokerage. So we operate as sort of our own little entity inside of the larger corporation. But our focus, there's so many different ways to do real estate. There's so many different kinds of people who do real estate. And there's different ways of running your business. The way that we all sort of came together is that we're all pretty obsessed with the customer experience. A lot of people on this team came out of the service industry, restaurant industry. And our whole thing is that we take our jobs really seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously. So, we are very good at what we do, but we really try to focus on making it like a fun and rewarding and enjoyable process, just because the actual process of buying or selling a home can be really, really stressful.
Very good. And I mentioned you're a real estate broker, so we see commercials on TV, finding an agent, finding a broker. Can you explain to the audience what the difference between a real estate agent and a real estate broker is, those nuances?
Yeah, so actually in Chicago, where I'm based, we don't have agents. That we have brokers, and then we have managing brokers, which are the people who run the brokerages themselves. So when I say broker, it's pretty interchangeable with the term agent. But if you're referring to the way that most people refer to it, a broker would be the person who sort of sits at the top of the office. They have a different level of training, education, expertise. And some will also work with clients, but most of them are in more of a management role and a more of a support role for the rest of us if we need them.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay. So how long have you been, you mentioned a lot of people come from the service industry, specifically restaurants, things like that, which makes sense. Client facing, people person, you engage there. How long have you been in the field for? And walk us through kind of your career progression, if you will, a little bit.
Yeah, so I got into the business in 2018. Previously, I'd had a variety of careers, but this was always sort of my dream where I wanted to be. I just love working with people. I love Chicago, so I just wanted to have an opportunity to be in a job that let me get out into the city. My previous experience had been in operations. I was a chief operating officer at a small educational consulting company. And so the way that, I'm a very risk averse person. When you're in real estate, you only get paid when you have clients and when they buy or sell a home. So it was a little scary to me to go from having a salary that was consistent to having no guaranteed income. So I actually did what not a lot of people do, but I thought was best for me, which was I found an agent that I knew who was pretty disorganized. And I said to him, why don't you pay me a salary? It doesn't have to be a lot, but just pay me something. I will run your systems. I'll build your systems. I will sort of build the operation that goes on behind the scenes and help you get more organized so you can scale. And in return, I want to learn the business from you. And then in a year, I can go be an agent, because I didn't, you're going to help someone spend the most amount of money they're ever going to spend in their lives. I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing. And so I spent a year as an assistant, as a director of operations, and I built the team that I now run with my partner, James. And it was just a really amazing opportunity for me to learn from someone who had been in the business for a very long time, learn best practices, learn what to say to people, all of those things that are just really important. And then after a year, I started working with my own buying and selling clients. And so now I do a lot in addition to my daily work with clients. I run a women's group at our company and I run our team. But my favorite part is the client stuff for sure.
And I would say, is that a pretty typical career path? Probably not building operations and stuff for someone, right? And kind of getting in that way. But did you have to do, I'm assuming there's a level of education, either classes, certifications you have to do to get your licensure. So can you talk a little bit about kind of, and you can keep it somewhat high level if you want to, but some of the requirements from there? Like, is it a year-long program, 6 months? Walk us through that if you could, just a little bit.
So I think it's different in every state because every state runs like the way that business is run, the way that transactions are run is very different in every state. Here in Illinois, I think it was a 45-hour course. And then there's like a very, very challenging exam at the end of that, which it just, I think everyone walks out of there thinking they failed it. And then after that, in your first 2 years of being a real estate agent, you need to take another 45 hours of education. Now, when I did it, it was all in person. Now I think a lot of it is virtual or hybrid because of COVID. But there is a lot of education. Like, I think for the amount of work that we do, the barrier of entry is actually kind of low to get into real estate. I think that's why the test is so hard because they need to weed people out some way. But the stuff that you're learning about, a lot of it is important, like, learning about fair housing and discrimination. And there's a lot of stuff, but a lot of it is information that actually doesn't help you do the job once you're in the job. So it is not a normal, I think a lot of people take the exam, they go and apply to work at a brokerage, and brokerages will take anybody because they don't pay you. They make money off of you. And we could talk more about that. But there's not a whole, like, the real training of like how to build your business, how to be really good with your clients, how to give them good advice about things that will affect their lives, like water or mold or the things that can happen to a home. Those things you're kind of on your own for. And so that's why I wanted to learn from a mentor, because that wasn't what was taught to us in the education. And it's not at the fault of the education. It's just that's not what they are testing for. So that's not what you're learning.
Gotcha. So I'm going to ask about misconceptions later, but I want to kind of marry this with like what a typical week might look like. But I would say a misconception, especially today's age where we've got Zillow and Realtor.com and all these other sites where you can just kind of shop for yourself. Misconception, I would look at and go, well, what do they actually do other than the transaction, right? I find my own house, I do my own searches. Talk us through a little bit about the current kind of dynamic of house shopping, and then like how you fit, your role fits into all that.
Yeah, I think also reality TV doesn't help us. If you watch Selling Sunset, you think we're sitting in hair and makeup for 6 hours a day. I think obviously the internet democratized a lot of things. And I agree. Like, if I want to buy a house, I can go on Zillow, I can go on Redfin, I can go on Compass, I can find the house myself. But that is not, honestly, that's not where I think my value is. I don't think a good agent, that's their value, because we're not the gatekeepers. You can see a house you like and say, hey, Lauren, let's go see that. I think the value of an agent, especially in this day and age where the market is incredibly challenging. I know since COVID, we have a severe lack of housing in this country. There's way more people who want to buy a house than there are who are selling homes, and there's not enough homes being built. So having an agent who, when you're on the buy side, especially, and especially for first-time home buyers, which is a lot of who I work with, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to look for when they walk into a home. They don't understand the difference between living in a house versus a condominium, or a small building versus a high rise. Also, just understanding the market, because a lot of times when my clients are writing offers on homes, there are like literally 10 or 15 other people also writing an offer on that home. So understanding the strategy to win. I personally put a huge emphasis on networking with other agents, because a lot of the times having a relationship with another agent is a huge value for your client, because if they know you and they know you're good, they will work with you versus the other offers on the table, even if you're not the highest. So there's a lot of strategy and a lot of expertise that goes into crafting the offer and getting the house. But then there's a whole lot of stuff that happens once you're under contract to keep the deal together and for you actually to get the house. And there's a lot of with inspections and requests and all of these things and coordinating with the title company and getting it across the finish line, making sure you have your insurance and all of those things. Like, of course, there's a world in which people could do those things themselves. There are people that do, but it just makes it really, really, really hard. And if you can have someone who can help guide you through it, the same way that people will use a travel agent or just something to that someone who has the expertise that you can go to, that's where the value really is. And on the sell side, people just think they can slap their house up there and it's going to sell. And maybe in some markets it will, but there's so much work that goes into preparing a home in order to not just sell it, but to sell it for the best price and the best terms. And, even as a person who had bought and sold multiple homes before I became an agent, I didn't know how to do I didn't remember every transaction. I don't remember the details. And we're obviously very biased about our own homes when we're selling them and very unrealistic about what they're worth. So it
Yeah.
is good to have like a third party, unbiased person who's going to tell you exactly what you need to do to maximize whatever your goals are, time, money, ease, whatever it is.
Yeah. It's a great answer. And I will say I've had great agents and less than great agents. And
Hmm.
you don't really know you have a less than great agent until you get the great agent and you're like, holy cow, night and day difference. So I completely get that. Hey, I want to ask you
Well,
something.
and
You said,
sorry,
hey,
really.
oh yeah.
Oh, really? My brother who lives in Michigan, he decided he was going to sell his house himself. He lives in a really desirable community, and he prides himself on the fact that he sold his house himself. But he called me every day for advice, so he didn't really sell his house himself.
That's right. That's right. You're right. There's a million things that go into it that the normal person doesn't realize it goes into it until they're actually in it, right? And then
Yeah.
it becomes a lot more problematic for them. So, hey, you mentioned a second ago that you spend a lot of time kind of networking with other agents and building those relationships up. Do you is that something that you learn kind of doing? I'll say an apprenticeship, but kind of learning the ropes by going into it, or is it something that you're just naturally background, running businesses and being people facing that you looked at and say, hey, there's an opportunity here. Is that something that was kind of coached into, or did you take that on yourself?
It wasn't directly coached me, but my mentor, who is now my partner, he had been in the business for a while, and I just saw the way that the agents that he knew and he had worked with in the past, just the way that they really helped guide us, and that it really did working together with them made everything, it gave us opportunities that we wouldn't have had otherwise. Even coming to Compass as a company, like that was initiated by relationships James had had with previous agents who had made the switch and really uh, wanted us to understand the value of being at this particular company. But I also just saw it when I was assisting James on his deals before I was an agent myself. And I would see just the way that the conversation was different when you were writing an offer with an agent who knew you and who had worked with you in the past versus an agent who we had never seen before. And I also saw the way, it's like the thing about real estate that I love is that there's very few careers where you can meet new people every single day. And that's a huge pro of it. But also, when you have coworkers that you work with every day and you know what their idiosyncrasies are, what their strengths and what their weaknesses are, you can sort of work around those. Many times I'm working with people I've never worked with. I don't know if they're good or not, much like you didn't know if you had a good agent until you had a great agent. Um, I know what it feels like to work with agents who I'm just like, are you serious? Like, how did you get this job? So I realized just from that experience, I was like, oh, if people know that I'm good and that, and I know, it's like if you have multiple offers and you want to pick the best agent, you want to pick the best deal that for your client that is going to close. And if all things are the same and very clearly that one agent is really good, you're going to go with that one because you've worked with them before. And so I just feel like it's also fun. Like, the people are cool for the most part. So, but I just knew that could be a benefit to my client. And it has been many times. Just knowing the agent and having a relationship has meant my client has won over somebody else.
Excellent. I'm going to boomerang a little bit around. So bear with me, audience here. You mentioned 5 minutes ago that you got into this in 2018. uh, we mentioned offline, you're like, oh man, this is like my seventh career, right? So you're not a newbie. Well, you're a newbie into this, but like you mentioned, you were running an organization before. I want to talk about, if you can, share a little context into what was maybe not as fulfilling with your other careers. Like, why did you get into real estate after having a successful career in a different industry? Walk us through, if you can, that perspective a little bit.
I went to college to be a teacher, and that was always like my whole life. I wanted to be a teacher, and I did my student teaching, and I unfortunately had a really challenging student teaching experience, and it just scared me about doing it for my career. And I think if I had had a different experience, I'd probably still be teaching, to be honest. But
Interesting.
it was just a really challenging situation, and it was just, I was like, what if this is what it's always going to be like? So at that point, I was like, well, I this is what my life was supposed to be. So I was just kind of like taking, not just taking jobs for the sake of taking them, but I really didn't know where I wanted to be. And I was like, well, I'll take this job and we'll see where this goes. And I did that a few different times in a few different industries. And I always like to say that my career progression is sort of like the Ariana Grande song, Thank You Next, because every job I had, while some of them were absolutely horrific, they all gave me a skill that I is all somehow culminating now in real estate. Because the beauty of real estate is you can be literally anybody, and there is a place for you here if you're willing to work really hard. It's like there's agents who come like me, who come from other very successful careers in corporate America, and there's people who never went to high school, and there's people who are getting into this career when they're in their 50s after their kids go to college. There's a niche for everyone here, and it just so happens that whatever skills you have, you can use them here. It's just figuring out which ones to use and how to maximize them. um, in my last career before real estate, I had joined a company with two best friends who had started it. We really built the thing up over the course of the 7 years that I was there. And I really loved building something. And I had always assumed that we were going to build it to sell it eventually. And ultimately, the reason part of the problem was I had really trouble with boundaries and with shutting work off. And I worked myself to death. And, you know, I think they also worked me to death, but I think a lot of that I could have said no more. But I think ultimately, like, their relationship started to struggle, and I just saw the writing on the wall, and I was like, I am killing myself for someone else's benefit. Like, I'm not going to see the fruits of these labors if we even sell the company. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm going to take a bet on myself, and I just want to see if I can do something that makes me happier and, you know, a little bit more flexibility, although I do work a lot more hours, I think, now. Um, but there's something, as a woman, especially, like, not, I love the fact that I am in control of my own destiny, and I am in control of how much money I make, and everything that I do. While I do focus a lot on building my team and mentoring and all those things, I know at the end of the day that, like, if I don't work, I don't get paid. If I do work, I do get paid. And it's not going to anybody else. I have complete control over my own future. And that was really appealing to me.
Yeah, that's really nice. Thank you for the context there. What about real estate was stuck to you? Is just something you've always loved, and when the opportunity came up, you said, I'm going to follow this, or was it really just an opportunity with James?
So we were talking offline about how your wife loves looking at Zillow. I bought my first condo in Chicago. I had owned previously in Michigan, but I bought my first home here in 2014. And then I kept going to open houses like a weirdo. Like, why would you keep going if you have a house? But I just thought it was so fun. I just like to see how other people lived. I just like to see different styles of architecture. I just had a really good time. Then I was like, this is getting a little weird because, like, these agents are calling me thinking I'm going to buy a home. I literally closed on one a month ago. And so that sort of got the bug in me where I was like, maybe this is something that I could do. And then I started, it was kind of in the back of my mind, but as things were crumbling in my other job, I was like, why don't we just, like, see what happens? And so, I reached out to people I knew in the industry. I reached out to the agent who had helped me buy my home. And that's sort of how I ended up where I was. I'm not a researcher usually. I prefer to just, like, have someone tell me what to do. But in this case, I was like, let me talk to some people, just get as much of an understanding as I could. And just, I knew that I knew how to run a business. So I was like, maybe there's something here.
Very good. Okay, I want to pivot a little bit on the way back to you mentioned work-life balance before, like hours you're working. So I'm going to ask you two questions and you can combine them or we could just pause and I'll get to the second one. So I want to look at what a typical week or month or whatever might look like for you because people's buying cycles based on economy, super short. I had a guy who worked with me for a year and a half. We finally found the dream home, right?
Yeah.
The guy was hustling on me, right? He didn't give up on me. So walk us through what a typical week might look like for you, if you can, if this makes the most sense. And then you're in a people facing, you're on other people's time, right? They're working, they're trying to buy a house or sell a house. You've got to work around their schedules. Talk to us a little bit about work-life balance as well.
Yeah, I think those are good two separate buckets. So
Okay.
for better or for worse, there's no week that is the same in this industry because so your job as a real estate agent is obviously a lot of it is helping your clients, but also you're a business owner. So a lot of your job is building a business and getting new clients. And so there's always the push pull between those two things. And one of the hardest things is like when you're really, really, really busy working with your clients over here, the stuff to develop the business over here falls off. And so I really try to focus on balancing it out as much as I can. I think we had a woman on our team who I loved and I thought she was great at her job, but she was from corporate America. And I think after about 3 years, she realized that like the unknown of how much you're going to make every year, what a week's going to look like, what a day is going to look like, it just did not work with her personality. So she ultimately left to go back to corporate because this isn't for everybody. You really have to be thick skinned and you really have to be able to roll with the punches. And roll with a schedule that's really unpredictable because, for example, on Sunday, I was going apple picking and 20 minutes before I was getting into the car, my clients were like, we went to an open house and we want to write an offer. So now I'm driving, my boyfriend's driving, I'm in the car for an hour with his kids in the back seat. I have my laptop on my lap and I'm writing an offer before we go pick apples because that is just, I knew that if we wanted to win, we needed to get an offer in right away. And then, I had a whole week planned out with meetings and lunches and just, office stuff. But now we have to do the inspection on that house and we have to, meet with the attorney and do all this other stuff. So you really have to be able to sort of weave things in and be flexible. And, I think in the beginning of my career, it was really important to me to say yes to everything, anything that could be an opportunity for me to learn or to get clients or to meet new people. So there was I was working 7 days a week. It wasn't 7 full days, but a lot of real estate happens on the weekends, on the evenings. And so, and it's a mix. It's like, sometimes it's showings, sometimes it's appointments with clients to introduce yourself and, try to get them to sell their house with you. Sometimes it's going to inspections or going to the closing or, I have a client who's buying new construction. We've spent a lot of time shopping for like tile and, they just wanted me there to help weigh in. So it's very fun because every day is very, very different, but your schedule is so in flux. And so, and the other thing is we, in Chicago, at least, our busy, busy, busy season is between like February and July. So in those months, like I know I'm just going to ride it out. I'm going to work. I'm going to grind. It's going to be a lot of time. I'm going to be working late nights, early mornings just to get everything done. But then I don't feel bad when in October right now, it's much lighter and I don't mind reading a book in the afternoon and I don't feel guilty about it because I earned it because the earlier part of the year was so crazy. Second question about work-life balance. This is the biggest piece of advice I would give anybody getting into this industry is just you need to be very proactive about creating your boundaries and creating your balance. And again, there's some times where the balance just isn't going to be there. If your clients want to go see something, you got to go see it with them. And that is what it is. But I always tell everybody, like, if you've got a day where you don't have anything, maybe don't fill that day if every other day is full. And there are some agents that are very, very strict on their boundaries. Like I know a woman who she's a mom, she's got young kids. She has a voicemail that says, if you call me after 6, I'm with my kids from 6 to 8 and I will get back to you after 8 p.m. Some people shut off completely at 6. I don't know, truly don't know how. Some people say I don't work on Sundays. That's not what I need. But what I'll do is every Sunday, I will plug in the things that are important to me. Like I know that I'm going to do dinner with my boyfriend and his kids on Tuesday nights. So those are off limits to clients. I know that I need to do workouts certain days of the week. So I just block the calendar. So when I look at it during the week, I already have the things in there that are immovable, and then everything else can move.
Awesome. So did it take a little bit of time to kind of figure out what your schedule is like, to get the nuance of it when you start to see things come up? Like, it's a river, it's ebbs and flows a little bit.
Yeah, definitely ebbs and flows. And
Yeah.
it is really like I had to tell this to a new agent on my team recently. And I remember an agent saying it to me in my first year, because in your first year, you have nothing but time. I think the stat is that most real estate agents don't make a dollar for 3 to 6 months and are averaging like $30,000 in their first year. So all you have is time. And so if you're really hardworking and you're dedicated, like I was trying to fill that time and do everything I possibly could to get this thing going. And then when work actually did come up, now I'm burning myself out. So I think it
Yeah.
really does take time, and I think it's going to be different for everybody. But I just think for your own like there is a misconception that people get into real estate because they have a flexible schedule and they can do what they want when they want. It is not true. We are at the mercy of our clients, and so we have to figure out how to balance it out on our own, and also make sure we're making time for the people in our lives, because obviously if we're working in the evenings, we lose out on a lot of opportunities to spend time with friends and family. So it's just everyone's going to figure it out in their own time, but it definitely took me about a year to like even feel comfortable saying no to things, because when you're new, you're like, well, if I say no, do I look bad?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's pretty much with every job too,
Hmm.
right? So, okay. So you mentioned kind of what you do on a quote unquote typical week, right? Always changes, especially based on season. But you look at all your day to day tasks that you might go through. What do you like? What task do you like the most out of those, and which ones do you like the least?
Um, that's a great question. I really like interfacing with my clients. I like being with them. I like seeing homes with them. Um, I I'm a people person, and I always say that making people happy makes me happy. So just the relationships you form with these people, you're in their lives for a very important moment, and oftentimes for a very long time. Like clients I helped 6 years ago, we still get dinner. So I really just like being with them and meeting them and being a part of their families. I just think that's really special. Um, and I also really like, we have the opportunity, to go see some of the most beautiful real estate whenever we want. And so even without clients, I just like going to brokers opens and just seeing beautiful homes. Um, I'm also I'm a task person. I love checking boxes. So my favorite time of day is like, it's going to sound awful, but like 7 a.m. No one's, most people are not awake, or they're definitely not bothering you. So I can like go through my to-do list and get things off the list for the day and just really focus on the stuff I have to get done. That just feels good and makes you feel ready for the day. Um, the stuff I like the least, I mean, it's terrible. I hate running comps, which is valuing the properties. It's so
Yeah.
tedious, and it's very, very time consuming. And, it's obviously very important, and I do it and I'm good at it. I just don't like it. I find it so boring.
Are are there certain like firms or whatever that you work with where you have like interns or something like that, or lawyers would have paralegals that kind of do that? Are there firms that kind of have those type of tasks offloaded to someone?
So I have someone on my team who helps me with the paperwork on my transactions, like there's a ton of paperwork. That is something people do not know. There is so much paperwork in this industry. And if you're stuck at home doing it, then you can't be with your clients. And so that was the first thing I offloaded. That was the one thing that James had said was like, when you hit 5 million in sales, it becomes untenable. So we need to get someone to help. Um, but those people often aren't licensed. They don't have their real estate license, and they don't have the experience. Or if they do, they're like in that role because they're looking for an opportunity to learn or to make more money. I wouldn't necessarily trust that person to run comps. They don't have the same market knowledge I have. They
Gotcha.
don't have the same nuances that I understand the nuances like I do. So unfortunately, that is not something I can offload. Um, if I could, I would have done that 6 years ago because I hate
Makes sense. Makes sense.
it.
Okay, I want to talk to you about something that high school kids rarely ever think about, and that's the economy. So
Hmm.
the economy fluctuates, always has, always will, right? So most of them will not remember 2008 financial crisis
Yeah,
when
weren't they
things got
babies?
challenging. I know they might not have been born yet. Who knows?
Yeah, that's so sad. Oh,
um, but it was a tough time. And now, a couple years ago, interest rates were 3%. Throw a house up, you're getting multiple offers, and there's challenges with that as well. But now we're back to 6-ish interest rates here. You mentioned earlier, like there's not enough housing for people on there, so like your income is going to ebb and flow a little bit based on the economy. So
hmm.
for anyone who's listening, saying, uh, you know, thinking that, hey, this is something I might want to go into, can you spend just a minute talking about a kind of preparing for fluctuations in the economy and kind of the mindset you might need to kind of weather that, quote unquote, weather the storm?
Yeah. And honestly, one of the things I talk about a lot just with people I know, because I got into this industry in my mid 30s. So I'd already been around career. I've already had paychecks. I've already, been somewhat experienced with like saving money and paying off debt and all those things. I'm so grateful for that because when you're in this industry, you get paid in when you close a deal. So when a house sells, you get the money. And that means you're getting a pretty big check all at once. And it's very enticing to go spend all that money very, very quickly. And when you're young and you're inexperienced, you will. I mean, I'm sure I would have. I made my first
Yeah.
commission check was bigger than my first salary for an entire year. And now, granted, I was very underpaid in my first job, but it is, and a lot of people get caught flat footed. I know somebody who, they were coming off the COVID years where everybody was making money and they did not plan for it. And then they took a huge hit the year after because the market just slowed down. And so it is so important to be very smart with your money. Like the first thing that I did when I got into this industry was I hired a financial advisor. And I think there is some people think you shouldn't pay someone to do that. You can do it yourself. I couldn't do it myself. I didn't know what I was doing. If I did, it would be a different situation. But I needed someone else who had more experience and expertise and understood the ebbs and flows of the real estate market to be able to help me make sure that I have enough money that if the market took a hit, I could live for 6 months if I made $0. And that is so important because again, there's so many misconceptions about real estate. And one of them is that everybody's just rich, driving around in a BMW, wearing all designer clothes. And that's just not reality. And if that is what you're doing with your money, you are going to be like very stuck in a moment because there was always going to be down years. The past 2 years have been very challenging. I know a lot of very successful agents who took a 50% hit on their income. And luckily, they've been in the business long enough. They have savings. But if you don't, that's why so many people are leaving the business right now. They all got in during COVID when it was really easy. They never actually learned how to build their business or how to save their money. And now they are literally making no money and they have to get out because there's no income. So it is hard to understand. When I was in high school, I didn't get it. When I was in college, I didn't get it. But I wish somebody had taught me more about saving early because I think I would be in a much better position now because I didn't really do much with my money until I got into real estate. And then I was finally able to get smart and just be prepared for, whatever bad, inevitable market might come.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think a lot of kids, and I was certainly this way as well. You hear about savings from your parents, and you're like, okay, whatever, and then you figure it out when you're 30 something.
Right. And with compounding interest, you lose out on a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah. Yep. And shameless plug, if anyone's interested in a career in financial planning, check out a previous episode with Mike Reynolds. So,
My
so
financial
Lauren,
planners changed my life. So that is a great career to get into because I swear I owe that man everything.
Mine as well. So 100%. Lauren, talk to us about, you mentioned some of the things already, so this might just be recapping here, but essential skills that someone who goes into this field either needs to have or needs to hone to be successful.
I think my superpower is that I'm a very organized person. There's this job, again, because it's so unpredictable, you need to be able to have create structure for yourself. So I think being organized is important. Being detail oriented is important. Self-motivation 100% because you're working for yourself. So if you want to make money, you have to be able to get up every day and motivate yourself to do something. People skills, obviously you're working with people. And, I was just talking about this morning with my boyfriend. You are working with people at sometimes in their worst moments because they're spending so much money that they're very stressed. And so you really have to be good at navigating people. Um, and I think those are probably the biggest ones. You can learn markets, you can learn, the things to look for in a home. And trust me, there's plenty of very disorganized people in this industry, but I think that is a skill that will make you better at your job because when, at any given moment, I could have 10 clients circling that we're all, I need to know where we are with all of them at all times. And I also think as we're moving into this new world of technology and AI and all of these things, I think just being really good with technology and not having AI replace you, but knowing how to use AI to support you is going to help you because like the name of the game is getting as many clients as you can. And you need to be able to figure out how to make sure everybody's getting the best of you and having a great experience so they refer you more business in the future. So if there's any tech and tools you can use that will allow for that, that's huge.
Is there a non-secretive thing you do with AI that kind of, and it would be an example of ways to use it to help you?
So my company uses AI, which is really cool. One of the reasons we went to Compass is that they have really cool tech. And one of the things they do is they use predictive analytics to help us understand who is likely to sell a home so that we can focus our efforts on reaching out to those people. I use AI. I use it a little bit less because I have a background in writing, but people on my team use it to help them write the descriptions for their listings, to write their social media posts, to write, anything, emails to clients. I mean, people use AI a lot for that. Um, as far as tech goes, I just use apps that remind me to do everything because otherwise I'm going to forget. And I use a CRM, which really that is huge because it helps me every day go in and know exactly where all my clients are and what I need to do for each of them.
Perfect. Lauren, this will be, I'm a master at jamming 12 questions into a single question, which is 5 minutes long when I ask it. So I'm going to combine all students together here. So obviously for college, there are degrees and things in the real estate market, a real estate tangential market you can go to school for. Obviously, you don't need to go to college for that. So I'm going to combine all students here, high school, college. And this might be really applicable to you because you went to school for education. So any classes, clubs, organizations you can think back on and go and say, hey, if you're in high school or you're in college, you might want to consider doing these things because they'll either give you tools or skills you'll learn later, or just kind of open you up to something different. Anything at top of mind that might jump out to you?
Yeah, I think they did not teach this when I was in high school or college, but financial literacy I think is really important. But I think any like I don't know if it's a class or if it's a club or whatever, but if you are this is a job where you have to get uncomfortable sometimes because you're selling yourself. So you're doing sales. I don't consider selling homes to be sales really. I think what you're selling is yourself to have people work with you. So anything that I think the things that most benefited me were I was in a youth group in high school where I got leadership experience and I got experience working on teams with people, which I think is really important. But also, like anything that gets you speaking in front of groups or getting you out of your comfort zone where you are talking to people that you don't know, I think that is just having the confidence to do that is what will help you sort of grow your business in this industry. Um, and also just like, I do think working with like anything where, even if it's just in college, like doing a group project or in high school, doing a group project, you're always going to be on a group project with people that aren't pulling their weight or are difficult to work with.
Yeah.
Those are skills that will come back to you in life. And if you can start mastering it early, you will be more successful in literally whatever you do, but definitely in real estate because you're always working with people you do not know.
It's perfect. It's perfect. All right, Lauren, I promised you misconceptions earlier. I'm going to deliver on misconceptions now. So we covered one of them already. Are there other misconceptions that either you had or you hear all the time at cocktail parties that you wanted to spell for the audience?
I think the misconception one is that we are overpaid. I get paid very well for what I do, but I've had many careers and I've never worked harder than I work now. Um, I also think the misconception of that, you control your own schedule. I do think there is flexibility in this, in that some days are busy and some days are light, but we are at the mercy of our clients or anyone who's out there who wants to see the homes that we are selling. Um, and yeah, I guess whatever misconceptions are on reality television, that we all just drive around in Lamborghinis, and selling a $45 million house is easy, because my average price point is not 45 million. I will tell you that.
How about spend a minute just on personalities here? So you mentioned most of the people are good, but obviously you're going to come across people who are just not pleasant to deal with. So either they could be selling because they're going through a major negative change in their life. They could be frustrated with the buying process. Maybe they missed out on houses. What I don't really know the best way to ask this, but maybe percentage it. Is it 85% of the time clients are awesome, love them, and 15% is the negative side? Maybe that's a better way to do it. Like, can you ballpark us kind of the typical percent, like balance between positive to more challenging experiences?
Yeah, I think this might be different for people who sell like true ultra luxury. Those people might be a little more
Sure, sure.
challenging to work with. I think for me, I think 85-15 is probably about right. Like, I really like and I enjoy working with a lot of my clients. There are just some people that are really just difficult to work with, or your personalities don't jive, or, especially in the market that we've had, where people keep losing out on buying homes, they might blame you, even though it's not your fault. It's literally the market. And so you really have to have a thick skin, because sometimes, even though they don't like you and they're challenging you every step of the way, you still have to keep working with them until you're done. And that is really hard. Like, I had a client once, I think they hated me. We were selling their place. It was a really hard place to sell. I sat down and I said, I don't think I'm the right agent for you. Like, I think let's find you somebody better, because I don't think you like the work that I'm doing. And they refused to let me fire them. And so I still had to work with them. And so sometimes you just have to, or by the way, in real estate, a lot of the times you're working with friends and family. So that's another challenge of, like, drawing the line between I am your friend and I am your agent. And you don't want your real estate to get in the way of your friendship, your job to get in the way of your friendship. These are really challenging things, and like, sometimes you just have to go home and you just have to take a deep breath and just be like, all right, we've got to do this for one more day, or one more week. And it is not easy, but as a percentage, it's way less. Like, those are the people that are going to get into your head, and they're going to keep you up at
Yeah.
night. But the other 85% are lovely. They do what you say. They trust you. You give them advice. They listen to you, and they are successful because of it. Those are the people that keep you coming back and why you love your job. But every job is going to have challenges and days where you just want to punch a wall. But for the most part, if you're doing your job right and you are leading authentically with who you are, you will end up with people who like and trust you. And then it will be a more positive experience.
Excellent. Only a couple questions left for you here, Lauren. If someone, let's call them in high school, or maybe they're 17, 18, right? They're borderline there. They think this is a career that they want to get into. What are some ways they can start learning about that a little bit more? And what I mean by that is, should they be asking their parents to take them to open houses on weekends? Should they be looking at something like, should they be, pouring through Zillow to find certain nuances of things? Like, what's a good way to kind of do a really soft foot in the door?
I think it would be reaching out, maybe your parents' real estate agent, if they own a home, or if everyone knows one, right? I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
of us. So find a real estate agent that you know. If you don't know somebody and you're not comfortable, maybe have your parents call a local brokerage office and just see if you can shadow them for a day. See if you can sit down with them for a half an hour and ask questions. I think this is a job where, even though I thought I knew what I was getting into, you really don't know. And so I think shadowing and just seeing what someone's life looks like, or being able to ask them questions, it's really helpful. And honestly, like, they might want to take you on as an intern and let you shadow them at stuff and help them with mailers or whatever. Anything you can do to learn. Some of that stuff feels very annoying. It's like, do I really want to go stuff envelopes on a weekend? But that is going to be your future. So
Yeah.
why not learn? And and start making connections, because if you want to, I think it's challenging, but if you want to, you could go get your real estate license at 18 and start working instead of going to college. I think it's hard to convince someone to sell a home with an 18-year-old, but it's possible and people do it. So if you start making connections now, or you make them during college, then that could be someone you could work with or work for when you graduate. And so that's just it's all about people in this business at the end of the day. And so the more people you know and you connect with, the more successful you can be.
Phenomenal advice. Love it. That's a reoccurring theme, by the way, with everyone, whether it's working in politics or financial planners. Reach out to people and just ask. They can say no, but those connections are going to matter. So I think, especially in a people-facing industry like yours. All right, Lauren, how about the most challenging part of working in your field?
I think for me, because I'm a planner and I'm very type A, it's just that you never know what your year is going to be. Like at the beginning of this year, I was like, I'm going to do 50% of what I did last year. And that made me very nervous. The market was just very slow and you can't really prepare for it. I mean, you can save your money, but you just don't know. And my year ended up being way better, but now we're coming up at the end of the year and I have no idea what next year is going to look like. And so I think it's just the unpredictability of this, and also and I think this goes for anybody who's an entrepreneur or a business owner. You don't have that security of knowing that you're going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks and it's going to be stable. And I think also this is probably really boring for high schoolers to think about because they've never had to, but like I got to pay for my own health insurance and that is very expensive. So.
Yeah. Another thing like finances, they never think about, right? It's just
No.
a given for them. So,
Right.
yeah. Which is, I mean, that's a kick to you,
Yeah.
I appreciate and admire the fact that you said I'm a planner, and the entire podcast you're saying this thing is unpredictable. You don't know what you're getting here. So I think there's a level of admiration from my side.
So you control what you can control, and then you just learn to ride the waves. That's all you can do.
Very good. Let's take the flip side to that question, Lauren. What is the most rewarding part of your career?
I love when my clients call me like a year after. Someone just texted me today and they bought their place over a year ago and they're just like, we love where we live. We love our neighbors. We get invited to all these block parties. Like I love being a part of this moment in someone's life that changes their lives. And that they're so that you were a part of something where like they're getting so much joy out of it. There's nothing better than that. I mean, like finding out you got the house, that's like point one. It makes me so happy. But it's just knowing that whether it's that they love where they live because their life is better there, or they sold their home and because they sold it for that amount of money, they were able to buy their dream home. Like these things that you're just a part of someone's life in such a major way, and they will always remember you for that.
That's excellent. Well said. I will say, I bought a house 3 years ago from this guy who worked for us for, I say a year and a half. It was probably longer, right? We kept looking. We bought in like the heyday, so we lost out on a bunch of houses. He still calls me on the anniversary every year. It's like, hey, it's your 3-year anniversary. It's your 2-year anniversary. So I love it for that,
Yeah, and it really is like my clients were like, can you come over? We just redid the bathroom. And it's like, oh my God, the fact that they want me to come see it, it's just so fun.
Yeah.
Like they think of me still. And that is, for someone like me, like that is like, that's my love language. I just love that I can make someone happy. So
that's awesome. All right, Lauren, we went through a lot today. You gave tons of practical advice. I appreciate all the deep insights, specifics you gave on there. I couldn't have asked you everything. So is there something specific that maybe I neglected to ask you that you feel is really important for the audience to know?
I don't think so. I think that this is a really awesome career for the right people. And I think, like I said before, ask people, sit down and ask them to mentor you. I'm open to that. Like if you are in Chicago and you want to sit down and learn about real estate, I'm happy to do it, because I just think a lot of people sort of poo-poo this industry. They think it's, a bunch of like club promoters who are now selling houses. There is this is an industry that, again, anybody can get into, anyone can be successful at. I have no agents who are 20. I know agents who are 80 and they're still killing it. And so I just feel like if you are really want to work hard and you really are good at self motivating, this is a really, really rewarding place to spend your time.
Awesome. All right, Lauren, last one for you, I promise. Well, technically not. This one's going to be tough because I always ask someone, you're out of your career and you've got to choose a different career you think you'd be happy in. I've got to pull teaching out of here. I've got to pull tech or whatever
I
industry.
wasn't
I
happy
think
in
you said
those.
it was a tech company, right? How about choosing a different industry you think you'd be happy in?
I think TV production I'd be really good at. I think
Okay.
there's a lot of crossover skills in terms of organization and leadership that I would excel in. And I just think it would be really cool to see what that looks like from the other side and not from the couch looking at the screen.
Awesome. Well, Lauren, I enjoyed the conversation. This is a pleasure. If anyone wants to reach out, maybe ask you a question about careers, if their parents want to reach out, ask you a question about buying or selling a home, what are some good ways, if any, for someone to get a hold of you?
Well, I am addicted to my email, so you can email me at lauren@modagroup.com. If you search my name, you will find me. We are very public people in the real estate industry. I'm also on Instagram and LinkedIn, so pretty easy to find. I'm assuming my name will be listed underneath here so people can copy and paste it because it is
Yep.
not easy to spell. But I am, the next couple of months are going to be light as we prepare for 2025. So I got time if anybody wants to talk.
Awesome. So Lauren Herskovic, everyone, real estate broker at Compass, specifically at the Moda Group under the Compass family there. So hope you enjoyed the episode. Be sure to like, rate, review us, share us, whatever you need to do there. If you want to explore other careers or share your own with us, please check out our website to find out more. And until next time, be kind to one another. Go Bills.